Here we've got two chats here. It's very weird. Anyway, okay, so what we're going to do is the first thing we want to do is bring the images in. And this is going to be quite useful. I'm going to show you a different way of bringing the images in and putting them together into a stack just for fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose File, Open, and we're going to find some photos. I've got these ones, but you know what? I'm going to go to some other ones here, and we're just going to bring these in. So let's look at some of my photos to show. Let's go under. So basically what we're doing right now is we're just navigating to our pictures, and then we're going to grab a few pictures that we're going to use in here. So why don't we grab this one? It's going to be nice. I'm going to hold down the Control or Command key and select a few images. So just pick some of the images that you want to use. And I don't know, let's pick one more just for fun. We'll pick this one here. And we're just going to click Open. Now all these images are going to open here inside of Photoshop. And so right now we've got a whole ton of documents here. And what we want to be able to do here is we want to be able to put all of these documents into one document. So the way to do that, once we've got them all open, have you guys ever done this before and you want to combine them? And I've seen people do that where they just click and drag one image into the other image. And let me just hit Control-R, turn off those rulers. Here's a quick way to do it to all of them. So we just want to decide which one do you want to be the host image, maybe this one. And then we just simply go under here and we're going to go to our scripts. And under our scripts, we're going to load files into stack. Now, normally you would just click Browse and you would find them from the folder. But I wanted to do it this different way just so I could show you, just something that when I figured this out, it would just save me so much time. Just choose Add Open Files and see all these tabs that are there? It's selected them all. And now if we click OK, it's now going to bring all those open documents and put them into one Photoshop document and put them all here. So hopefully that's going to help you guys. And yeah, we could do it from Bridge Hunter. That's another way of doing it. So now that we've got all of these here into one document, what we want to do now is we want to crop them down to the image size. So I'm kind of doing it this way because I want to show you some, just some different tips while we're doing this. The other thing, we've got all these other tabs. We don't need them anymore. If you right click, you can see an option that says Close Others. That closes down all the other tabs so we don't have to go through there one at a time. I'm going to drop this timeline down just a little bit so you can see the screen better. Alright, what we want to do now is we want to hit our crop tool here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this width, height, and resolution. Let's just do it in 720. I would do it in 1080, but that's going to take up... Why don't we do it 1920 by 1080? Why not? No, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, let's do that. Sorry. We'll do 1920 by 1080. And make sure we type in pix so it knows what unit of measurement we're using. I'm going to throw in 72. It doesn't really matter what I put in there, but we're going to do that. So this is the screen size that we're setting up. This is going to be the size that we're going to create our slideshow in. So what we want to do is make sure Delete Crop Pixels is turned off so we don't lose any pixels, and then just hit the check mark to apply the crop. So what we've done now is we've cropped this document down to the size we're going to use for our slideshow, but we haven't deleted any pixels. If you look at the edge there, you can see everything's there, nothing's cropped. So what we're going to do is just go through just one layer at a time and make these fit. Now, generally speaking, I wouldn't make these larger, but for what we're doing for multimedia, in this case, it's going to be fine. So Control-T is just going to enable us to free transform. But generally speaking, you're going to carefully pick out the images ahead of time and make sure that they're all the right size. You could batch resize the images. There's so many ways of doing this, but I decided in this case we do it this way so we could, just look at some different things. All right, so we're just going to enlarge this to fit. And then we're going to go through two more layers, and I'm just hitting Control-T, and we're just resizing these and positioning them. How do I want these to fit on the screen? I think that looks pretty good. One more. And let's do that. Great. And by doing it the way we just did it, you could set up your screen size to any size or any aspect ratio that you wanted. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to turn this into video. So the way to do it is with our timeline set, choose Create Video Timeline. Now when you've got that video timeline open, if we scroll up here, we can see there's all the different layers. So what I'm going to do is, and someone says, will you be putting this on YouTube? Yes, absolutely. Right after this goes, the replay will come up live afterwards. So right now we've got these set to about 5 seconds. How do I know? Because if you look at the timeline here, it shows you in seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I hit the space bar, we can play, or just hit the play button. But you're not going to see much because nothing's happened yet. So what we want to do is maybe make these slides 3 seconds each. So I'm just going to select all the slides. I'm going to select the top one, hold down the Shift key, select the bottom one, and now I'm just going to drag to 3 seconds. It looks like I have to do each one individually. Okay, so there's no batch. So we're just going to have to drag these. And one of the limitations here is there's not a lot of batch processing options. So a lot of the stuff you have to do manually. So we've got about 3 seconds per frame. Now we're going to change the frame. So right now these are just stacking one on top of each other. And you can see they just match what we've got here in our layers panel. But what I'm going to do here is we are going to go through and we're going to put them one after the other on the timeline. So why don't we go to the little slider at the bottom, push it to the left. And by moving this to the left, it doesn't change the speed of the video. It doesn't change the duration of the video. What it's doing is it's just enabling us to see more. All right, so let's just drag these out, and notice all we need to do is just go up there and they snap. So we don't have to worry about butting them up against each other. This is going to happen automatically. Now we have everything in one layer, and something you're going to notice here is a video group. So what this video group means here is with the video group, it means that everything, instead of being stacked one in front of the other, these are stacked in time. So the very top of the video is the first slide, is the last slide. The bottom of the video is the first slide. And notice if we click on any of these layers here, notice how they get highlighted here in the timeline. So essentially what we're doing is we are working in time, but we're starting from the bottom and working our way up. And just quick shout out there to Hannah. Good to see you there. Hannah is a Illustrator queen. If you guys want to know anything about Illustrator, ask her. She knows everything about Illustrator. All right, so we're going here from the beginning and we're going across. So now we've got the beginnings of our slideshow. So let's hit the play button. And if we watch this, we can see those slides. Okay, so we've got a very, very basic slideshow happening now. Let me drag this down so we can see here. But this is not the animated slideshow that I promised you guys. I promised you an animated slideshow, so let's do one. We can change the duration of any of these, by the way. If you want to shorten them, you can just click. So they don't even have to be all the same length. So if you want some to happen faster than others, or you want some to last longer, you can just drag to change the duration of those individual slides. Just figured I'd show you guys that quickly. All right, why don't we put some animation in here? And it's so easy. If we right click, we see the option to do motion. And what we have here is motion presets. So we have all of these motion presets. So that means we can do things like pan, zoom, and rotate. So we've got combinations of 3 different types of movement. So the first type of movement is panning. And panning is where something just moves across. So that's panning, moving from left to right or right to left. Zooming is when it comes in and out. So the picture will get bigger or smaller, kind of, the Ken Burns effect. We can zoom in or out of the photo. And then, of course, rotate is, it's going to go rotating like that. But now we can pan and zoom, which means that we can zoom in as it's moving across, or zoom out as it's moving across, or we can zoom in while we're rotating, like that. Okay, so hopefully my acting is, rather than making you seasick, is helping you to understand. Okay, let me show you. So why don't we do the very first one? We're going to do a pan. And we can choose which direction we want to pan from. Make sure, though, of course, we select the one we're going to work on. We're going to pan it. So we can pan it, look at this. We can pan it from the left. Or if we right-click here, we can change the direction by going there. So if we prefer to pan from the right, we can. I'm going to pan from the left. So that's what we do with panning. And resize to fill canvas is a good idea because that prevents us having those little gaps. You know, you get the transparency around there. It doesn't look good. It's not something we want. Okay, so there's our panning. Let's go to the second option here. And we're going to select this. And we are going to right click on here. And let's do a zoom just so you guys can see what zooming does. So we have two options here. We can zoom in. That's how we would zoom in. And of course, if you wanted to make it faster, you would just change the duration, shorten the duration of that clip. Or you can zoom out. So here's the option here. If you want to zoom out, you can go the opposite way. Now, there's other things too. Right now, you can choose where you're zooming from. So you can zoom from a corner. See that? Or you can zoom from the middle, depending on how you set it here. Now, if you wanted this to zoom into a specific area, you could select it and just, choose these little 9 areas will help us. Okay, let's go to the next one. So we're going to select this next one, and let's look at the other one, which is rotate. And I guess it looked kind of cool rotating with the waterfall here from above. And we can do this clockwise or counterclockwise. So let's have a look. So there we go, we're rotating. So you can see how we can start to add the different types of motion to these. Now we've got the combination ones, which would be rotate and zoom. And I kind of like the idea of rotating as we zoom in. So let's show how that works. Look at that. See how now it's zooming in. So we can quickly change these. Let's go through some more. That one's going to make us seasick or dizzy if we watch that one too much. Why don't we make this one a pan and zoom? So this one's going to pan in as it zooms in. And then we'll do this one here. Let's do a pan and zoom out. So let's do pan and zoom. And we can set that to zoom out. See how we're getting all these different things here? And then the last one here, why don't we do just a pan? Now let's do rotate and zoom out. There we go. So now we're kind of covering pretty much all of the different options here. And if you want to see what they look like, I'll just hit the space bar here and let's go there and see what happens. All right, so that's how that works. And yes, my thanks, Rod, for seeing my Death Trooper there. Star Wars fan, of course. And also, Tom is asking, can you animate text for the titles and slides? Absolutely, you can animate anything. You can mix this with video if you want. You could animate text over the top of it. There's all kinds of things you can do. You can do graphics, and this is a good time to be using a ping with a transparency. We could have that moving across, logos, all kinds of things. All right, so we've got that animation is working, but we want to kind of smoothen it out a little bit. So why don't we add some transitions? So if we click here, you'll see the transition option and crossfade. If I drag crossfade in there, this is going to give us a smooth fade between the two. See that? So these are the different transitions. Just by clicking this little option here, we can change the transitions to make them shorter or longer by clicking the duration, and that will set the default transition. So that means if I set this, it'll be 1 second. If you want to make it shorter or longer afterwards, just click and you can drag them to make them shorter or drag it out to make it longer. So if you want that transition to happen faster, just click and drag on a transition like I did just right there. All right, so let's go continuing here. Let's do some more crossfade. So we're just going to drag these across really quickly. Let's do them all the way. And let's do a fade to black at the end. And we're going to make it short. So remember, if you click and drag, you can change the duration. And let's do a fade with black for the beginning. We're going to open with that as well. Shorten that duration. All right, let's have a look and see what we've got now. So I'm just going to go to the desktop full and hit play. Now, if you want this to loop, if we go to the end here, and then we can just turn on the option here, loop playback. Why is that suddenly a tongue twister? And now, if you watch here, this will go. It'll loop through there. And see how it's just constantly looping now? And we may as well just do one more, just for fun. All right. All right, so we can stop that. So you can see how that works there just by doing that. So Cindy wanted to know how we got that there. The timeline is actually just under Window. We go and we choose Timeline. And then you just click on this. If you just joined us, we are doing an animated slideshow inside of Photoshop. And we've got lots more planned, so if you missed the beginning, don't worry. The replay will be up in a little bit after the stream. And then also, we've got more segments coming up, so don't worry, we've got more things for you to see. We're going to be doing Fix My Photo and all kinds of things. All right, so if you wanted to add audio, what you would do is see under here, Audio Track, click on there and choose Add Audio. Then you just go navigate to an audio clip, select it, and then click Open. And then that will give you the sound. I'm not going to do it because the way it works if a live stream is if I play the audio, there's this big delay. I think it's about 5 to 10 second delay, so it's just going to become this muddled mess if I play the audio. But that's all you need to do is just go there, add audio, find your audio track, and then if you right click on that audio track, you can change the volume and the panning from left to right. Is there a number of slides you can create? So people are asking questions here about that. Cindy wants to know how many slides can you put in. It really depends on the power of your computer. You can put as many slides in there as your computer can handle. So if your computer is powerful, you can put hundreds of slides in. So it's really up to you. And how big are the files? The files, it depends when we export. I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. And of course, if you've got any questions, please drop those questions into that chat right now, and I will be addressing those as we go. All right, cool. So if we choose File and we choose Export, then under Export, we have the option to render video. This is how we get this out, and this is someone answering Venusa, your question right now. So how to get the slideshow out? Choose File, Export, Render Video. So we're going to be rendering this as a video. So let's see how this goes. Initializing video export. Okay. And waiting. Normally this happens instantly. I am on Catalina though, so there are some issues with Catalina and video in Photoshop, just so you guys know. So if you're not on Catalina and you're using Photoshop, don't go to Catalina yet unless you have to. I have a new computer, so I am on Catalina and I have no choice because you can't roll them back. Okay, looks like this video. Let me ask you some questions while this is trying to do it. It might not even do it. So what do we got here? How big are the files? Once again, it depends on the export settings that you choose. So generally speaking, when this thing pops up, this is going to give you an export button, which I have tutorials here on YouTube and on photoshopcafe.com where you can see the screenshot of it. In fact, why don't I see if I can just bring up a screenshot? This is going to be a bit of a far-fetched, but while we're waiting here, let me see if I can do that and just kind of show you guys. photoshopCAFE. You know what? I'm not going to do that because it's just going to take too much time. So essentially what you get is you just get a box there that gives you the options of what you want to, how you want to save it. And you just want to go by the defaults. It's going to show you H.264 video. And then on the right side, you're going to have a list of presets. So it could be YouTube 1080, 720. So you just basically would choose the preset that you want for the video to go out. Because it looks like here with Catalina, we are not going to be able to export that. So hopefully that's something that they fix with Catalina. How many of you are on Catalina? Let me know. Let us know in the chat there. But essentially that's how we would get it. And yes, when you export the videos, they're going to be compatible with Facebook, Instagram, with your website. You're going to be able to put them on YouTube. You can put them on iPads, iPhones, mobile devices. So when it exports it out, you're going to do H.264 or H.264 format, which is compatible with pretty much everything. So, so you guys shouldn't have problems with that. So essentially that's how you would go about creating an animated slideshow here inside of Photoshop. So now that, you know, let's just see any quick questions there. Easier in Lightroom. It's different in Lightroom. You can't create some of these different transition effects. And also, why don't I show you one other thing about animating? So say I go across here and I want to do a title. So I'm going to drag that layer above the video group. You'll see that little blue, line there? That means it's going to go outside of the video group. And I can drag it to the left. So this is how you can stack things on top of each other. In order to stack things, you need to do this. You need to get your layer out of that layer group. And so now that I've got this layer, I could put things on. I could do whatever I want. Or I could just grab type, and this is going to give me a new layer. All right, so we're going to do this. I'm going to call it my slideshow. All right, so there's my slideshow. Control-T for resize. And I'm just going to drag it out. Make it big. And we'll go there. Now, the preferred way of doing type, of course, is to go and drag on there, not on the type. But for something like this is going to be fine. Okay, so if we wanted to animate this, like maybe we just wanted to fade it in, we could just grab a transition here, choose a fade transition, and let's make it a 2-second fade. And just drag it to the beginning. And boom. Now, if we do this, look at this, my slideshow. So we could do it that way. We could do some of these motion presets. So we could also right-click and apply a motion preset. Maybe we want to do a pan here on this. So now we're panning. And so we start there, and there we go. It's panning across and going down there. Now, there's something more that I'm going to show you guys. And this works. Like, see how I twirled this down here? And we see these keyframes. We could do this with the slides as well. If we pop this open, see we've got these keyframes. And that means that even though I'm doing a motion preset, I can determine where this motion preset is going to start and end. So you can have complete custom control. I'm going to get rid of the fade transition just for now. So we can see there's our type. Look at this. If I hit this first keyframe, now it's selected. Watch this. I can drag this off to the left. Now, if I hit play, notice how it moves across all the way to the right. Now, if I want this to stop in the middle, what I can do is I can drag this keyframe in here to the middle. And then when we get on that keyframe, let me select my type and move it. So notice this now. So we can slide it across. Boom. So you have control over these, and if you want that to happen faster, just drag them closer together. And look at that, my slideshow. Boom. So you can use motion presets as a starting place for creating more complicated animation. So what the keyframes do is when you click on one keyframe and then you move your text, so let's move it up here, you're saying this is where I want it to start. Go to the second keyframe, make sure it's highlighted. This is where I want it to end. And watch how it will go between those areas that I set it. So you can do that with the photos. So when we're going in here and we are animating a photo, actually let me just undo that a couple of times because I just ruined our effect there. So let's just see, maybe there. Okay, there we go. There's our nice slideshow. And if I wanted to fade it, I would just add that fade transition. But notice when we do things here, like when we are panning and zooming, I can do the same thing. So if I'm zooming on the picture, let me make this wider. And select there. Sometimes I'm having some issues selecting the keyframe. If you have that problem, just click there in the layers panel and that'll help you select it. And you can see that you can go in here under our video group. And this is really weird. You know what, we're just going to do the first one. And we can do the same thing. So, you know, if we wanted to change this, we would just add the keyframe. We would select that keyframe there. And then we could move the photo across, you know, and have it start off screen if you wanted. So I just wanted to show you that. So that's the kind of control you can get by going into those keyframes. So that's, you know, kind of like a little extra bonus thing there. This works like iMovie. Yeah, a little bit. So anyway, guys, if you're getting any value out of this, hit that like button right now. And it just kind of helps the algorithm let people know we're live and just kind of keeps things going here on the stream. And also, if you guys haven't subscribed yet and you're just first time here or you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and then you'll know when we go live, you'll receive those notifications on there. So it looks like we got a couple of questions. Drop your questions in here, and I'm going to look at these. Then we're going to jump into Fix My Photo. So I just showed Rod Shelley how to add the text layer. Oh, how do you add it on top of each photo? If you wanted to do it on top of each photo, you would just essentially just create more than one. So see how I've just created that type layer? You would just shorten it down to the length of the photo, and then you would just create, you know, you could create another one and then drop it one after the other. So you would just create another text file, like Control J. Now we've got a second text file. You just drag them in like that, just like we did with the photos. So you can create different bits of text and different things like that. Put them on different layers. So what other questions? Can you add animated text for... Yep, we just did that. Can you use this on a website? Yep. That's Chris Bacon. Photo Maker. How would we export an animated slideshow? Okay, so I was trying to show you how to do that, except for the little bug there between Catalina. So Catalina has a couple of little problems like that. It's not like Photoshop is unusable, but if you're wanting to render video, well, I guess it is. But for everything else, it's going to work great. So, all right, guys. So what do you think of that? As far as the slideshow, I think it's time that we move on to a different segment, though, because I would really, really love to fix my photo. And here we are, fix my photo. You guys know the spiel. So right now I'm fixing your photos that you uploaded to the link there, and you can just go to fixmyphoto.net if you want to upload your photos. Love to have them here. And please upload a RAW file if you have one. If not, you do a JPEG, that's fine. As long as we've got a nice high-resolution JPEG, at least 2,000 pixels, this is going to make it so much easier to work with. And make sure that I prefer you do the unedited photos when you upload those photos. That's going to make it easier for me to edit, because it's hard to edit photos which are already edited. Put your name in the file name so we know who uploaded those photos, so we know who they came from. And if you want to drop some text on there, just go ahead, upload a text file or something like that. You can with some, what your problem is with the photo, if you want to do that, if it's not obvious, or what you want us to do with it. And maximum of 3 submissions per week, so per person. So if you submitted 3 last week, you can submit 3 again this week, but no more than 3 a week, please. So all right, guys, so let's have a look and see what we got. So this week we're looking at some photos that have been submitted. We got some cool ones here, and I promised last week that we were going to start with Klaus. Klaus actually sent this a couple of weeks ago, so don't worry. Every week I don't just throw them away and just start fresh. I will go back over those photos. Of course, we're getting a lot of really good ones lately, which is great, so I'm really happy. Never explored that part of Photoshop. That's great, Eric. All right, so Klaus, are you in the house? Oh, man, that rhymes. I didn't even plan that. I wish I had, because that's actually quite clever, if I may say so. All right, so say hi, Klaus, and we're going to work on your photo. So I'm going to double click. This is an RAF. I believe that's a Fuji format, is it? So I'm double clicking, and that's going to open here, and we are opening inside Camera Raw. And for those of you who have been asking, my Camera Raw course is now live. I should just let you guys know about that before we do this, because this is something I'm actually quite excited about. So the Camera Raw Live, I launched it yesterday morning. I think Bruce will drop the link in there for that. But if you just go to photoshopcafe.com, you can see Camera Raw. So I spent a bit of time here, and I created a 6-hour course on Adobe Camera Raw. So this is everything you need to know about the new Camera Raw, the new interface, because you guys were asking a lot about it. And so now we have it. And there we go. And of course, that code was there that gives you the 20% off. All right. So let's look here. So Klaus, thank you for sending this photograph. And we've just given it a couple of minutes to see if Klaus is there. Ah, there you are. Good to see you, Klaus. This is a beautiful photograph. I love the feel of this. It just has a really lovely, just a vibe, a mood. It's very moody. And I do like the color. This is a really interesting color. But I feel like this week on this one, I want to do something different. Like maybe we're going to take this a black and white image, and we're going to give it a little bit of a different feel. The first thing we want to do, though, is we want to straighten it because it's not quite straight. So if you're wondering where the straightening is now inside of Camera Raw, if you click on the crop tool here on the right-hand side there, what you want to do is go down to the angle, but don't try and mess with the angle. You know, you can try. And when you're doing this, you want to be able to turn on your grid or change your grid. And what I'm going to do is we are just going to reset that and get out of here. And so the grid that you select here this is your master grid control. So if you want to drop your opacity down a little bit and say, you know what, when I want my grid, I want it to look like this. And this is going to help me, you know, align that photo. You know, you can go in and do those settings there. But what we're going to do is we're not going to do that. We're going to grab this little tool here, and we're just going to click and drag across, and just release that, and that's going to help us just kind of do that. And then when I hit enter, of course, we're going to see our grid overlay again. Now, when you're inside of there, you can also change the different overlays. But let's continue. I'm going to turn the grid off. And we're going to move down though. And what we want to do is, I just feel like we want to do some black and white on this. So why don't we start under the edit, we're going to choose black and white. So the B&W is going to turn this into black and white. Let me just fill the screen so you guys can see it nice and easily. And before we do, we're going to play around with a couple of the sliders. Now, it's kind of surprising you guys that I'm going to use a temperature slider. Because if you look at the temperature slider, look at the big difference this can make on a photo. Even though there's no color, it's affecting the underlying colors, and this is enabling us to just kind of go in here and just find a nice overall feel. Okay, see that? See how it's just kind of a little muddy there, and then we pull it across, and what it's doing is it's seeing the colors here, it's brightening these up, darkening down the greens, and just helping us make more definition on the areas of the photo that we want to show. Now we can also go down here to the black and white mixer. And the black and white mixer is essentially our color mixer, but it changes to black and white when we're doing a black and white image. Now if you grab this little picker, we can go into different areas and play around. And what this is doing is it's changing the colors under those tones. See that? So we can darken or lighten our browns, play around with our greens, and just get some interesting control over the way we're mixing the black and white. And so if we just go back to auto, you can see here, let me turn off the black and white. Whoa, let's that auto went kind of crazy. Let's turn that off. Let's reset this. There we go. Reset to open. So you can see how we've got some blues here. We've got kind of the brownish tones here, a little less there. So you can see the tones. There's not a lot of different color in this image here for us to be really manipulating in the black and white. But if we go in here, though, we can still see it as we adjust the sliders. See how it starts to affect it? So just go into these sliders one at a time. And I have a feeling these are not going to do much. Maybe when we get to the purples and magentas, it might. There's that blue, see that rope? So if you want to make that rope part of the story, really pump those blues up, or you could just blend it in. It's up to you. You know, if the story was, you know, where have all the horses gone? You might want to show a little bit more of that so you can see that. Would kind of add to that story. Well, let's blend it in a little bit there. Purples are going to do something there nicely. Magentas. Well, those magentas are really hitting. Look at that. So, okay. So you would go across and do that. Now, once you've done it, let's go into our basic. I want to recover my highlights a little bit. Just going to show this nice silhouette there in a tree. Just going to have some water. We could open up the shadows or we could keep them dark. I'm going to open them up a little bit. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just revealing a lot of detail. Maybe we're not going to keep all this detail, but we're just kind of revealing it for now. Okay, so let's hit our whites. I'm not going to do too much with those, and I don't want to push the blacks. See, I could go into blacks, and that will push the definition, but I don't want to do that because I like the atmosphere in here, so I don't want to kill that. I want to keep that feel of the photo while just kind of bringing a little bit more emphasis here on the foreground. And now, of course, if we do the texture, this texture is going to make things, you know, pop like that, but I don't want to do the texture on the whole photo. I'd like to see a little texture on the foreground, but not the background. So this is where you're going to use things like the graduated filter. And so if we start the graduated filter and pull it up from the bottom, holding the shift key to constrain it, now we can apply our adjustments. If I turn on the mask options, whatever I adjust is where that mask is. So we can fade it or we can blend it up a little bit. And then so we can apply that definition or our texture here, but it's not going to affect the area that's not masked. So watch what happens when I go in here and I push up the texture. See how we can push that texture in the foreground, makes this area more defined, but it's not messing up anything in the background. So we're just keeping that nice dreamy look there. Great. And there's a couple of other things I might do here. One of them is this is just crying out for a vignette. So if I move this to the left, what the vignette just darkens the edges and just brings the focus more into the photo. Because really the story is this tree and this here, this fencing. There's probably a proper name for it. Someone tell me. One of you ranchers, let me know the proper name. The pen, I guess you call it a pen maybe. Let's go down, and what we want to do now is we want to add a little bit of color. So we're going to choose our split toning. And in our split toning, we're just going to do the saturation, just a little touch, and see how we could go through here and just give it a nice sepia look. I'm just kind of putting that in there. Now you could do it in the shadows, or you could do it in the highlights, or you could do it both. Or if you want to go more of a duotone effect, you could add a different color here into the highlights, maybe a bluer. So we're seeing this kind of blue into the mist, and maybe bring this down into the warmer colors. So the shadows are getting that warmer kind of color, and then we're going into the cool mist. So we could do the blues or even greens for that mist. Aquas, oh, that feels quite nice there. And I'm going to bring the saturation down on the shadows just a bit. All right. And then the balance will enable us to shift that color more to one than the other. Let's move it across there a little bit. And so that's what we're kind of looking at. So, so what do you guys think about that? There's our before and there's our after. So we've definitely done a different look there. So it's a paddock. Okay, so it's a paddock. Thank you. You can tell I've spent a lot of time on the farm. Or not. So thank you for uploading that beautiful photo there, Klaus. And I really enjoyed that. So we've got a couple more I want to look at. One of them I'm going to look at just a little quickly here is Ralph Nelson. And so Ralph actually had another photo too that he shot in even lighting, where everything looked really nice and even. In this case here, he shot this photograph when the lighting isn't even, so there's highlights and shadows, and he did this on purpose. And by the way, Ralph has a book on botany, and thank you for Ralph for sending me he sent me a copy of a beautiful book, coffee table book, all shot on an iPhone. Absolutely beautiful work. So what we're going to do now is he wants to know how to even out the tones a little bit on this image. So why don't we do that? We're going to choose filter, and we're going to go down to the camera raw filter. And what we're going to do is we're going to play around, and we're going to just show some basics on how you would even out this toning a little bit. And Mary is saying she liked the original colors better, and I like the original colors too. They were beautiful. So obviously when I'm doing these adjustments, I'm not saying this is the way it has to be done. It's just an option. Another way you could do it is to take that original photo and stack the two on top of each other in Photoshop, and then change it into color blend mode. And then in color blend mode, you could apply the color of that original over all the adjustments that we've done. So that's another way we can work. Okay, so in a situation like this, this is very bright. We want to just bring it down here with where these petals are being hit. So the highlights are really good for that. So if you move this to the left, we can see that you can recover detail in the highlights in the photo. So that's what we want to do. So we're just trying to even out the tones a little bit. We might even bring back the contrast. Notice as I bring back the contrast to the left, this is also evening out the tones and bringing in more detail here into these petals. Look at that contrast. Bring it down a little bit. It helps. So one of the things that Camera Raw does by default, and so does Lightroom, is it adds contrast a little bit. So if you take it to about here, this is about more natural. Alright, so then the other thing is you want to open up your shadows a little bit. So what we're doing is we're just flattening out the photo by evening out these tones because it's been shot in that direct sunlight and shadow. So we could brighten up the whole photo if we wanted. Now, if you wanted to get in here and get these individual areas, the way I would recommend to do it is to grab a brush. And we can do our adjustment brush. And if we turn our mask options on, we can see what we're doing. So what we could do is hit these shadow areas. And it's got auto mask on by default. So this is going to protect these shadow areas a little bit. And then we could just go in and just hit these. So we're not making any adjustments yet, but we're just selecting these areas. And I'm just going to focus on the flowers. You could do the same on the leaves and different things like this. Now, obviously, this is not going to end up looking like a photograph that was shot in even light, but we're just going to minimize the effects a little bit. So we're selecting all of that, and let's turn off the mask option. So all we need to do now is just brighten up these areas a little bit. So we could turn up our exposure. See what we're doing here? Change the temperature. You want to warm up that temperature a little bit. And let's play around. Get our highlights up. Open up those shadows a little bit. And there's a little bit of halo there. So what you would do is you would just zoom in, hold down the Option key. Let me make one adjustment here. See when I'm turned off separate eraser size? That means when I hit the Alt or the Option key, this is going to be about the same size. And you could just go in there and you could just clean up those areas just on the edges of those shadows. See what I'm doing there? Just so we don't get those halos around there. And this is how I like to work a lot with the tool, is just apply it and then go back in. I probably went too far there. It's going to be challenging without zooming all the way in. Well, let's zoom in. There we go. So if you want to do very precise work, then you're just going to zoom in right up to the edges here, and you can just kind of paint it. And then alter the Option key. So we get a little bit of color noise in there. And of course we can fix the color noise by going down here. I don't know how it's going to work, but let's see. Let's go to our detail, sorry. And here's our color noise reduction. Yeah, okay. So if you see these, we can get rid of that color noise there. Yeah, that did it. Smoothened out that color noise, beautiful. I got a little edge there. I probably would want to blend that for softer brush. Let me hit that brush again. Make the brush a little bigger. There we go. Let me select that. I want to make sure I select our original brush. And I'll choose the right tool. It helps. All right, there we go. There's our brush. And if I hit the Alt or the Option key, there we go. Now you can just kind of blend it. So you would just kind of go through and just kind of do that. And then if we look at this before and after, you can see we're starting to even out the tones a lot. And at that point there, if you want to brighten up the image, we could definitely do that. The second paint over for halos. What I did for that is I just zoomed in and then I just hit the Alt. I'm holding down Alt or Option. So if you look at the brush here, this is to answer Bonnie. See how the brush, I'm painting with the brush. Let me select. And see how the brush shows? If I hold the Alt or Option, it changes it to the eraser. So with the eraser, now I can go through and get rid of the halos. See that? And so if I had the regular brush, it's going to add. If I hold down Alt or Option, it takes away. So that's basically how I did that. So we could go through here, and then we've just kind of overall. Now we've just kind of evened it out a little bit. Then we could go in things like here if we want to warm up the temperature a little bit. You know, we could do that. We could make other adjustments. And here's before and after. You can see we've evened out the tones a lot inside of that image. All right, let's have a look at another one. And this one is going to be interesting, because this is a photo that Bruce sent to me, and Bruce didn't take the photo. A client gave him this to work with, and look at this. Somebody was not thinking. The light is coming through the chain, and it's hitting here, and now it kind of looks like he's got a birthmark all over his face. So I've got an interesting technique for doing this. That, let me just double click so we go to 100%. So there's different ways we could do this. If we tried to do this with the clone stamp tool, you know, this could get, you know, quite tricky doing this with the clone stamp, and difficult. But there's an easier way of doing it, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it right now. I'm just going to create a new layer above, and then what we're going to do is we're actually just going to paint this out using the same colors. So we're just going to grab a brush, and what I want to do with the brush is I'm going to turn my flow down to about 6%, maybe 7%. Let's go to 7%. So I've got the flow very, very low. Now, if you're wondering about the difference between flow and opacity, check out the last video that I uploaded into Photoshop on YouTube, and that'll be on photoshopCAFE at the same time, and check out that tutorial, and it's flow versus opacity. I don't think it's on photoshopCAFE yet, but it will be in a day, but it's right there on YouTube right now. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here, and let me just tap for a sec, trying to make that brush work, hitting the left bracket key, making the brush smaller. All right, so now we're going to paint onto here, so I'm going to hit the Alt or the Option key, and that enables me to sample. And now with this low flow, I'm just going to gently just paint in the face. See what I'm doing? I'm just painting it. Now we will initially lose all the texture. Don't worry about that. You can go in here and just see what I'm doing, just blending it together. Just blending the photo. And if it looks like a cartoon when we're done, that's okay. Just step one. So we're just painting this in. Alright, there we go. Let's select here, same thing on the cheek. Let's get this going. Maybe make a smaller brush. And notice how I'm keeping that flow low and just taking it a little bit at a time. And this way I can just blend in the colors by tapping on that Alt or Option key and grabbing the surrounding colors. See what we're doing? Just slowly blending it. Take your time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. All we're worried about right now is just evening out the colors. And those wine bottles are deformed, but if you drink enough of them, you won't notice. That's the amazing thing about wine. All right, so we're going in here, and we're just kind of painting the colors. See what we're doing here? Just evening out the colors. I'm not going to retouch this whole face. I just want to just get rid of just this. So do you guys do this? Let me know in the comments how you would have tackled this. And do you guys do much of this painting? And if you do you use a Wacom tablet? I'm using a Wacom tablet currently. Or do you guys use something different? Do you just use a mouse? So hard. I used to work with a mouse back in the day. And see what we're doing here is just blasting out the photos. And by the way, I tried this in frequency separation. If someone's going to say frequency separation, it didn't work. Not on this image. Alright, so here we go, still going there. You know, I could maybe, I'm getting impatient, so I'm going to make the brush a little bigger. There we go. And looks like he's got a little bit on that side too. Just kind of paint that out. There we go. And he's got his neck too. The neck is exactly the same. I'm not going to do the neck just for the sake of time, but everything I'm doing here, I would be doing on the neck. I would just be grabbing the color. Do I want the shadow color there? I would do that. Or if I wanted the highlight color, I would go there. And, you know, so just so you know, the neck is the same, just for the sake of time. So now we've got that there. Luke would take a new photo. Those are definitely good options. All right. So actually, he looks a little bit like Seth, you know, the actor, the comedian, Family Guy. What's his name? Actually, now I think about it, does look a little bit like him, doesn't he? Let me see. I've got under the eye there. I didn't get that. Let's go there. Just color is all I'm looking at. There we go. Evening that out. Nice. And I'm just going to zoom out for a sec just so we can see. And sometimes you want to do that because you might see some areas that you missed, such as over here. Seth MacFarlane, that's what I was thinking about. Don't you guys think he looks a little bit like Seth MacFarlane? All right, so now that we've got that there, so now we've kind of got the colors evened out a little bit. We need to fix the textures. You know, the lip. You know, you would go in there after the lip. You would do everything right. Okay, so I'm just trying to get that a little bit better. Great. So what I want now is, if we look at this before and after, we've covered up the area that's the problem. So sometimes when you're retouching, the first thing you want to do is just cover up the issue and then you fix it. Now remember, I'm not doing the neck, so the neck's not perfect, and I would do exactly the same thing for the neck, just going to take more time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. And now with this new layer, I'm going to go down and I'm going to grab the good old clone stamp tool. So rather than trying to do the whole thing with the clone stamp, which is just not a good idea, I'm going to use a clone stamp to bring back the texture. So what we're going to do is take that layer, the top layer, we're going to change it to luminosity. So that means now when I paint, the only thing that is going to be affected now is going to be the luminosity. It's not going to change the color, because I don't want to take the color from this side, add it to the other side. Now when I'm working in the clone stamp, there's a brush, there's a tool here that we want to use here. And this is our clone source, and this is where we can set options for our clone source. And what I want to do is, if we look at it here, let me just make a selection. So say, you know, I'm there on a layer and I paint, you know, there's his eye, right? So I'm painting his eye in. Now, we don't want to be painting that in exactly. What we want to do is we want to flip it. So we want to actually go in there and change that setting here. So let's go in here and I believe, what am I doing here? just want to make sure I'm getting, yeah, there we go. That's giving me that, that's flipping it now. See that? So if I grab this side here, so if I grab that ear, see how that would flip it? And that's what we want to do. So click that button right there. And so now we're flipping horizontal. And that means if I hit the Alt or the Option key now, I can sample the texture from there. And let's turn this flow down nice and low. Let's do a 10% flow. Might be too much, but we're going to select it here. And now watch what happens. As I go there, we can grab that texture and just paint it back in. In fact, let's turn that flow up a little bit. See what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing the texture from one side, copying it in here, and now we're applying some texture so that he's not completely flat. Alt or Option, you just sample it. Just go in here, just dabbing it. I should have probably grabbed that there before I fixed that. There we go. Let me grab the corner there. See what I'm doing? Just grabbing that skin texture. Bringing the skin texture over. So we're using the same color, but we're applying that texture. And see what we're starting to do, guys? And we're starting to get there with this. So if we look at this before and after, you can see it's starting to look a lot better. I might turn this flow up. I wonder what happens if I go with the full texture here. Oh, thanks, guys, for the kind comments there. Yeah, there we go. With a higher texture, that's working better. There we go. Look at that. And then we're just going in here. And look at that. Almost done. And so, you know, I could keep going a little bit, you know, just perfecting it, working on these little areas and, you know, going under the chin. But if we look at what we had here before and after, that's how you fix something like that. So I hope you guys found that useful. So what you would do is just continue, you know, doing what I'm doing. Right now we're like 95% of the way there. So just keep tweaking and eventually you'll get the whole image perfect. So anyway, guys, if you liked that or you like any of this, hit that like button and that's the thumbs up there. And also subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet to Photoshop Cafe, consider hitting that subscribe button right now. Turn on all notifications. And then that'll let you know when we upload videos. Now, we upload new videos every single week. And so you would be uploading. So every Tuesday we've got a new tutorial. Every Thursday at 1 o'clock we have Live from Lockdown. And of course, we have our Back to Basics weekends. So check it out. Thanks for watching, guys.